Hi guys, this is Vineet, and in today's video we will talk about query performance tuning process inside SQL Server. Before we proceed ahead, I would request you guys to please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. There's a subscribe button below this video. Click on that subscribe button. It will give you a bell icon. Click on that bell icon. Select all notifications to get notifications regarding all my future videos. Now let me discuss some of the points why you should be subscribing to my channel. So let me begin with point one. I have mentioned 5 points over here. So first point is that if you have a dream, subscribe if you have a dream for a great career, high paying job, nice big house, nice car, good bank balance, and you have a dream of having investments to make money for you. And you know that all of these dreams can be fulfilled by getting a job with high salary package. And in order to get that job, SQL skills are required. So if you have this dream, please go ahead and immediately subscribe to this channel, as all these wishes can be fulfilled by getting a job with a high salary package. Now, second reason I've come across is that if your salary is being completely consumed fully into paying house EMIs, house rent, etc., food, clothing, entertainment, expenses, children's school fee, movies, travel, etc., so it means that your salary is less and you need to earn more. And in order to earn more, you want to have a good job with a high salary package, and for that SQL Server skills are required. If you are in the data science field or something related to SQL Server, if you are into that area in the IT field, yeah, then absolutely you need SQL skills in day-to-day life. And if this is true for you, please go ahead and immediately subscribe to the channel. Now third reason could be if you are doing a job for 9 hours and you're not getting any time to read books, to learn quality SQL Server stuff. We all agree that books contain great stuff on SQL Server if we have time to read them. But usually with our 9 hours jobs on a day-to-day basis, we do not get time to learn enough SQL Server skills from the books. And instead you are looking for an alternative to get video training on SQL Server to master it. So this is the place. You can immediately go ahead and subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button is below this video. So this third point, if this is true for you, if you are not getting time to read books, immediately go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Now, let me go ahead with the fourth point, which is if you work with SQL Server. So now if you work with SQL Server on a daily basis and you feel that you do not have sufficient skills to perform your work effectively, then in that case you should be immediately subscribing to this channel, as this channel will give you SQL learning on a daily basis, as we have now started almost releasing videos on a daily basis. So this channel will be very useful for you and you should be subscribing to this channel immediately. Now let me go through the last point. After that we will start our video, or we will start our discussion on today's topic. So last point is, if you are currently jobless, or if you are currently a fresher, or started searching for job after completing your graduation or post-graduation, then if you want a good job in the SQL domain, then yeah, it's absolute must that you should subscribe to this channel, because by subscribing to this channel you will become SQL master in the coming year if you daily watch my videos. Now let me turn off the highlighter. So there are some points to remember while watching this video. Please watch this video till the end to gain better clarity of the concept, and if it's possible for you, please watch this video twice. Perform any exercises in your lab environments only. Do not touch any production environments or production databases. We would like to know your thoughts regarding our videos, so please share your comments with us guys. Any suggestions, any videos that you would like us to make, any incidents with SQL Server or usage of SQL Server you have come across, or maybe if my videos have benefited you in any ways, do share your stories, guys, because I love to hear your stories and I eagerly wait for your comments. So please do comment. Now, if you need the PDF copy of the notes that I'm discussing during the video, if you need these notes, there are two methods to get the same. First one is the paid method, where you need to send me an email with the video title, name, and you need to send email at vermavane@gmail.com. So once I get your email, I will check the video title and will send you the payment link to make the payment, and upon making payment you can download the PDF notes. Second method is the free method, where the already existing subscriber and the new people who have not subscribed can subscribe to our channel by clicking on the subscribe button below this video. So once you click on the subscribe button, and once you click on subscribe button, it will change to subscribe button. At that point you can take a screenshot of that area, showing me the subscribe button, the channel name and the video title. Send that screenshot to me over to my email address, vermavane@gmail.com. So once I receive your email, I will check your subscription status, and I will check the title of the video, and will send you the PDF notes across your email address. I have curated some playlists for you to watch. So I have working my majority of work is on 6 playlists at present. So these playlists are SQL Server database design, SQL Server tables, business continuity, SQL Server indexing, SQL Server performance tuning, and SQL Server integration services. This video is on SQL Server performance tuning categories. So we are starting with performance tuning area, and I will be making more videos now on the performance tuning area. So it's starting from today, where I will start from scratch. So guys, stay tuned, do subscribe to this channel so that you should not miss on any of the upcoming videos. This video will be in the series, so consider it as a first video in the performance tuning category. So you see in the playlist we have 15 videos already, but those are related to indexing majorly. Majority of them are related to indexing. So this time what we have done is, as we were getting requests to properly define this performance tuning area, although indexes help in performance tuning, so but yeah, we should not be starting from there directly. So we should be starting from the basics of performance tuning. So consider this video as a starting video, where we will discuss about the basics of performance tuning, what performance tuning is, and how to go into this area, and how to look at the things related to performance tuning. So do subscribe immediately. There's a subscribe button below this video. Click on that subscribe button. It will give you a bell icon. Click on that bell icon, select all notifications to get notifications regarding my future videos. I've also listed out some the video counts against each of the playlist. So I see that 2 playlists have more than 50 video counts. So watch all these playlists as per your taste and the area you are working into. You can watch the playlist accordingly for that particular area. But yeah, some of the playlists are common. So if you want to get the basic design idea for the database, then yeah, first playlist is useful for you. SQL Server database design, having 57 videos. Videos are increasing in that playlist on a daily basis. Apart from these playlists, I have a channel page which is at youtube.com/@SQL by Vineet. So once you visit my channel page, you will see a subscribe button there as well, and you can subscribe from there as well. Apart from that, on my channel page you will see a playlist specially curated for you, and apart from that you will see a trending video playlist. You can watch my trending videos, and apart from that, all of these six playlists will be there on my channel page. And the best way to watch videos is to go through all the videos in a particular playlist instead of watching videos randomly for each topic. It's not very useful. But yeah, if you select a particular playlist and go through the videos in that particular playlist, that will give you more expertise in any particular area, in that particular area. So all these links are included in the video description area of this video, so you can check them all out. Let's come back to today's topic, which is query performance tuning in SQL Server. Let me take you to notes quickly. let's select the pen pointer and I will discuss these notes today. So this will be a mix of theoretical and practical session. So I will be covering some theoretical stuff. In the middle we have around 4 demos, and after that I will be covering some more theoretical stuff. So these are basics on performance tuning. I'm starting from scratch, so be attentive to this class, and if possible for you, please watch this video twice in case you don't get the idea in the first go. Watch this video as many times as you like. Alright, this is a recorded video. You can watch it as many times as you want if you want to become expert. Alright, so today's topic is query performance tuning process. So this topic is particularly referring to the performance tuning process related to query tuning. But yeah, performance, just if we talk just about the performance tuning area, it's very wide, more than just a query or indexing. Performance tuning area is very wide, but let's start with the query performance tuning process. So I will give you a broad outline of what a query tuning process is. Now, in order to improve the performance of a query, so if we are talking about improving the performance of a query which runs in SQL Server, we usually go through the following steps. So below are the steps indicating these are the steps we follow in order to improve a particular query. So this is a general guideline, not an actual method. So let's see what are the points. So first, in the query performance tuning area, the first step is to identify which particular query needs the attention or which particular query is not performing well in our system. And then we need a method. A method is required for monitoring query performance. So we need some monitoring on our system which can monitor the queries that are not performing well, right? So that it can catch the queries which are not performing well, so on which you can focus, and you can later on modify that query and optimize them for running in a faster manner. Third step is after you determine the query. So after you implement the monitoring mechanism, what you can do, you can determine which queries are causing most of the problems. So that is what we discuss. So the monitoring mechanism helps us in determining the queries that need our attention, or it lists out the queries that are causing more problems. And once the query is determined, we basically troubleshoot the potential causes of slow performance in that particular query. We review that query and we determine what are all the potential causes of its slowness or slow performance. And after determining that, we apply various techniques to resolve the performance issues. We modify the query, and after application of techniques to resolve the performance issue, we measure the performance of the query after making the changes. So these are the broad steps we do when related to query performance tuning. Now let's move ahead. Now let's discuss about the performance issues. Alright guys, so let's list out some of the performance issues. So some of the other factors, so I'm talking about the factors apart from query tuning. Apart from query, we are discussing every other factor over here. So some of the other factors in addition to query design and indexes, so we are disregarding this area, query design and indexes. Apart from that, there are several other factors that can affect the performance of the queries. Alright, and these are some of the factors. This is obviously one of the factor. We should not be talking about this. Improperly written query, that's obviously the issue, and improper indexing can also be the issue, but let's ignore these factors. Apart from that, the other issue behind slow performance could be hardware issues, operating system issues, we can have network issues, we can have server configuration issues, maybe misconfigured memory on the server, maybe other application consuming more resources on your SQL Server, and the applications that are running on your SQL Server consuming more resources, therefore SQL Server are not getting those resources like memory and IO maybe. And another reason behind slow performance could be your database design is not optimized. That could be one of the reasons. the database design is not optimized, and another reason could be improper database application choice. So maybe you are using a relational database, and the type of work you are doing does not fit the relational database. Maybe you need a non-relational database or NoSQL databases. So these are some of the major reasons behind the slow performance. Now let me discuss, let me have a small talk here. So let me open up Notepad. Alright, so nowadays we see that we use the virtual operating systems like the VMs, and we also use containers, right, which are basically Docker containers or maybe Kubernetes containers. The most familiar we are with the Docker containers. So nowadays we use virtual operating systems and Docker containers, and we may be in the situation where the only thing running within the VM or the container is SQL Server. So our SQL Server can run inside these two things as well. So these two things are, first one is the virtual operating system, or maybe we can call VMs, and it can run inside Docker containers as well. Alright, so there could be a scenario where we can find that there are other virtual machines and other containers using up the resources on particular server. So VM runs on the host machines, right? VMs runs on host machines. Let me increase the size of this font here so that you can get the view. So VM runs on host machines, and these host machine may run other VMs. So first of all, we were talking about the VMs that are just running the SQL Server. Just running SQL Server. In addition, we can have other VMs. Operating system can run other VMs which don't have SQL on them, right? And similarly, we may have other containers which we don't have, which are not running SQL Server on it. And these other host machine may take resources, right? So these other VMs can take resources like memory and the CPU utilizations that are not running SQL Server, but they are running on the same machine where we have other VMs or containers that are running SQL Server. So this could be one of the reasons behind the performance loss or lack in performance. Because if SQL Server is waiting on access to resources, so are the queries running on your system as well, right? So this is why identifying what else is running on your SQL Server system or server system is also very important. So you should determine that what all other things are running side by side on your SQL Server machine. Alright, that could be one of the reason behind performance loss or something. And there are number of configurations you could mess up on the SQL Server instance that can indirectly hurt performance as well. So there may be performance issues as we were discussing. There may be server configuration issues where we can misconfigure the memory sometimes. So that can hurt the performance as well. So misconfiguring memory can easily starve queries of the resources that they need. So we should be aware of that. This is one of the other factors in addition to that VM thing and the container things that we have discussed. Now let's come back to a topic. Now let me take you through sp-configure command, so which is basically a stored procedure, and let's learn how to use this system stored procedure. get information. And basically, let's go through some theory, then I will take you through some practicals over here at the bottom. So let's cover up this topic. So the first topic is sp-configure command, and this is basically a stored procedure, and we use the stored procedure to display and change global configuration. So this stored procedure gives us the global configuration on the system. Let me show you quickly the glimpse of it. So if we open up the SQL Server, let's wait for it to open. So once it opens up, I will connect to the default instance of SQL Server, and after that I will run this stored procedure without any arguments. So SQL is up, let's connect to it, and let's trigger a new query against database, maybe any database you can take, and you can write, once the query window opens, write sp-configure. So this stored procedure basically gives you a list of all the global configuration options on the server. These are global configurations of the server, not the database. So if I just run the command, it is listing out 29 properties which are global properties. One of the properties can be like, there is a property related to memory as well, but yeah, let's go through some of the properties like allow polybase export, allow updates, backup compression algorithm. So these are global settings which we can modify, and the sp-configure stored procedure just lists out these properties, and I will go through each of the columns information shortly, so stay on this video. Let's discuss that. So this stored procedure basically display or change the global configuration settings for the current server. We change the database level properties configuration options using alter database statement. So guys, please keep this in mind. This stored procedure is for server properties and not the database properties. For database properties change, we use the alter database statement to make any database level configuration changes. So I've highlighted this. We use alter database statement to make any change in the database level configuration options. Now when we execute the sp-configure with no parameters like we just did, it returns a result of with the 5 columns. So what are these 5 columns? This is listed out in the table, so I will go through them. The values for the config value and run value are not automatically equivalent. Alright, so let me see this table. So sometimes the config value and run values are not same, sometimes it's same. Here we have a scenario where it's same. So we will talk about the scenarios when we don't see it as same, but right now all the config values and run values are same. Now let's go through this table. The first column is indicating the column name, second column is indicating data type, last column is indicating description of that particular field. So first column is the name column in this table. This is the name of the global property or global configuration property. The data type of this property is nvarchar35, and this property basically, or this column basically indicates the name of the configuration options we have available in the system. And minimum column defines, so we have a minimum column where we have a minimum column as 0 or some has -1. So what does this value indicate? Basically it's an integer type column and minimum value of the configuration option. So this minimum value indicates the, so for allow polybase export, 0 is the minimum value and maximum value could be 1. And for some of the options like column encryption enclave type, the minimum value can be 0 and the maximum value can be 2. So this is min-max combination. What could be the maximum value for that particular option and what is the minimum value for that particular database configuration option. So we are done with maximum, we are done with minimum, and let's talk about the config value, which is the integer data type. This basically specifies the value to which the configuration option was set using the sp-configure, right? And this value can also be the result we got in sp-configure can also be fetched by running a select statement against the sys.configurations system catalog view. It will also give us the same set of results, so you can check that out. Alright, so far we are just using SPConfigure, which also list out the properties. So config value is basically indicates the option that was set using the SPConfigure, the last setting. So for example, config value here for data processed daily limit in TB is specified over here, which is this big number. Alright, and it was set during the last configuration, and at the runtime it is using the same value. So that's the purpose of run values. So actually it is using this value, and yeah, configured value is also same as the run value. And let's move back to notes. So what is a run value? It's the currently running value of the configuration option. Alright, so it is indicated by this field value in use, and other one was indicated by the value sys.configurations value and sys.configuration value in use. So let me show you, you can run that as well. So if you do select star from sys.configurations, I think this catalog view has multiple columns, and you can just select the value, and basically this gives us the configuration ID, the name of the configuration, the minimum max values, the values in use. It also gives other description of that particular value. Alright, whether this is an advanced setting or not, whether it's a dynamic setting or not. Alright, we'll talk about them in shortly. So this configuration catalog will also give you the value settings. Value in use is determined by the value in use column, and value determines the config value. Value in use determines the run value. Alright, let's go back to SPConfigure. Now let's move back to the notes. So run value determines the currently running value of the configuration option, also denoted by sys configurations value in use. Now when you specify a new value for an option, so for example if we change a new value, so maybe for example I change the config value of allow polybase export from 0 to 1, I set the config value as 1. Alright, and this is how we change the value. So when you specify a new value for an option, the result set shows this value in the config value column. So whatever changes we'll made using that SPConfigure stored procedure, then changes will initially show up in the config value column, right? And this value initially differs from the value in the run value column. So for example, if we immediately make changes to this column for allow polybase export, it will initially show up in the config value, and that time config value and run value may be differ with each other. So config value may be 1 and run value may be 0 at that time, at the time we configure the value to 1 for the config value. Now this value initially may differ from the value in the run value column, which shows the currently running configuration value. So run value basically denotes the currently running value or the value in use, whereas the config value is the value we have set for the settings on the configuration settings. And basically to update the running configuration value or the run value, what we do is in the run value column we basically run a command, or system administrator basically run either reconfigure command or reconfigure with override command. So these two commands can be used if we want to sync the config value with the run value with the config value. Now both reconfigure and reconfigure with override work with every configuration option. So every configuration option, these commands can be used with every configuration option. So we have like 29 configuration options over here, 29 rows, 29 configuration options. So these commands can be used with each of these 29 configuration options, right? And however, the basic reconfigure statement rejects any option value that is outside of a reasonable range or that may cause conflict among the options. So if we just use the reconfigure option to change the value of the run setting, and if we are putting some value with the reconfig, so maybe we have set some value in the config which is outside of the minimum and maximum range, and we are then trying to run reconfigure. So at that time it will not allow us to reconfigure that setting for the run value. So basically the basic reconfigure statement reject any option value that is outside of a reasonable range. So that range is between the min value and the max value range. So value, if the value is outside of that range, the reconfigure statement basically rejects that option. All right, or that may cause conflict among options. So maybe the setting is correct or within the range, but maybe if it's causing conflict with other options, then in that case also it will reject that option if we had just use the reconfigure option. Now, for example, reconfigure generates an error, right? If recovery interval value is larger than 60. So let's see the recovery interval value over here. So let's see in this table recovery interval value. So do we see it here? Let's try to find that recovery interval value. So let me know if you see that. So far I'm not able to see recovery interval. Oh, okay, maybe that could be one of the advanced options, but let's check that in the sys.configurations view. If we get that, maybe we can order it by name. We order by 2. 2 is for second column. I'm ordering it by name, and let's execute this and let's see the recovery interval. Let's see if we have such setting. So yeah, we have recovery interval min setting, which is basically an advanced setting. That's why it's not showing up. So 74 row, if we take a look, it's an advanced setting. That's why it's not showing up on SP configure. So first we need to turn on the advanced setting, then only it shows up under the SP configure options. So let's talk about this recovery interval. So if this setting is, the comments are saying that if we set this setting to larger than 60 minutes, so let's see what it is set to right now. So recovery interval minutes value is currently set to 0, minimum is 0, maximum is 32767, and this basically indicates maximum recovery interval in minutes. Alright, so if we set this value to more than 60, what will happen? Or if the affinity mask value overlaps with the affinity IO mask value, reconfigure with override. Okay, we give me a second, guys. Give me a moment here. So alright, the reconfigure option basically generates an error if you set the value of recovery interval larger than 60 minutes, or if you set the affinity mask value, if you set the affinity mask value in such a way that it overlaps with the affinity IO mask value, then in that case also the reconfigure option will generate an error. Whereas if we talk about the reconfigure with override option, in contrast, it accepts the any option value with the correct data type. Basically, data type should be correct, but it will accept value in any range and forces the reconfiguration with the specified value, and it forces that reconfiguration with the specified value. Now there is a word of caution that inappropriate option value can adversely affect the configuration of the server instance. So we should be very careful by setting the configuration values for any of these settings, and basically we should be using reconfigure with override cautiously, as it set any values to any of the settings, global settings, which are not even permissible. So we should use these option this option reconfigure with override cautiously, and we should always we should first try using the reconfigure option. That is the best way, so that we can at least get error if we are setting invalid value for a particular setting. Now the reconfigure statement updates some options dynamically, whereas some options require a server stop and restart. So some of the options are dynamically updated, so which is basically indicated by this column. Where if you want to see whether a particular column setting can be dynamically updated to the run value, that setting is defined by here. This column is dynamic. So the settings which are dynamic are indicated by 1. Settings which are not dynamic and require server restart or SQL Server services restart are indicated by 0 value. Alright, and for example, it's taking the minimum server memory and max server memory options are updated dynamically in the database engine. So let's see that option. So the options are min server memory. So if we talk about this options, if you go towards the right hand side, it's a dynamic setting, so indicated by 1. So if we change the setting of this value, right now the minimum value is set to 1 and the maximum value is set to this. Alright, and this setting can be changed dynamically, right? So whatever changes we make to this setting will immediately take place in the value in use column. So right now the SQL Server this setting is using currently the 16 MB or 16 MB is used by SQL Server, although it is allowed to use this much memory indicated by MB. So yeah, this is a dynamic setting. Any changes made to this setting will take place immediately in the runtime, and we don't have to restart any SQL Server services after we change any dynamic settings. That's basically just alright. So for example, the minimum server memory and max server memory options are updated. Let's say if we have a max server memory setting as well. So max server memory is indicated over here. The value is specified over here, max server memory and min server memory. So any changes made to these settings, the max server memory and min server memory are dynamic because these settings are dynamic and can immediately take effect as soon as we make the change, and it doesn't require the SQL Server services restart. So these memory options are dynamically updated in the database engine, therefore you can change them without restarting the server. Now in comparison, so in contrast, if you reconfiguring the running value of a full factor option. Now let's see with the full factor option. So starting with F. No, it's not full factor but fill factor. So this is one of the options. So if we go towards the right, it's not a dynamic option. So if we are configuring this option, so in order to for changes to take effect for this particular option, you need to restart the SQL Server services. Otherwise, this the changes you make to this settings will not take effect. This is not a dynamic setting. The fill factor is not a dynamic setting. So that's why you need the server services restart. So by contrast, reconfiguring the running value for the fill factor option requires restarting the database engine. Excuse me for the typo over here. So it's not full, but it's fill actually. The word is fill factor, not the full factor. Now after running the reconfigure on the configuration options, guys, I will shortly cover demos how you can work with these options or how you can use the SP configure options. I will discuss that shortly. For now, let's go through this theory part quickly. So after running the reconfigure on a configuration option, you can see whether the option has been updated dynamically by executing the SP configure option name. So after setting the option, you need to run the reconfigure command for it to take effect and go into the run value option. And you can check the run value option by running the SP configure stored procedure with the option name in quotes. The value in the run value and config value column should match for the dynamically updated property or dynamically updated option. You can also check to see which options are dynamic by looking at the is dynamic column of sys configurations catalog view. Guys, I've just shown you the sys catalog view, the sys configurations catalog view, and we have talked about this column is dynamic, which basically indicates whether a particular property setting is dynamic or not. Alright, now let's go back. So we have shown you this already, the is dynamic column in the sys configurations catalog view. Now the change is also written to the SQL Server error log. So whatever changes we make also gets updated in the SQL Server error log that we have made a certain change. And the logging is there for that change. Now some configuration options such as the affinity mask and recovery interval are designated as advanced options, right? So if we talk about this option, the affinity mask, so this is an advanced option. So over the right hand side, if you see affinity mask, there's an is advanced column in this system sys.configurations catalog view. So this value indicates that it's an advanced option and it's not a normal option. All right, and so this is what it is talking about. So some configuration options such as affinity mask and the recovery interval are designated as advanced options, and by default these options are not available in for viewing and changing. So if we run the spconfigure command, it will not show us any properties by default which are advanced, and to make them available we need to set the show advanced option configuration option to 1. Now there's a word of caution. When you set the option show advanced options to 1, this setting applies to all users. It is recommended to only use this state temporarily. So we should be setting this option to 1 temporarily only, and we should switch it back to 0 when done with the task required viewing the advanced options. Alright, let me cover some of the demos here. Let me see how much we have recorded. It's like 41 minutes of video, so I think this video will be finished in 1 hour maybe. Now, okay, so let's cover the first demo, which is talking about how to list all the available configuration settings. So how you can list all the available configuration setting? You execute the stored procedure spconfigure. So if you execute the stored procedure, it will list out all the configuration settings, and by default it does not show you the advanced settings. Alright, and yeah, so we are done with the first demo. So this is how you can list out all the properties that are configured except the advanced properties or advanced global properties. This is done. Now let's go through second demo, which is basically how you can list the configuration settings for one configuration name. Alright, so for example, if you want to check the setting of one particular property, maybe you want to check the Hadoop connectivity property, just want to see that, not the complete list. So how you can do that? So to do that, you need to write the sp configure stored procedure, right? Optionally you can add exec keyword, but that is not required. You can just mention the name of the stored procedure. By default it executes, and once you specify spconfigure, after that you need to specify the configuration name. You need to specify this parameter config name, and you need to specify the name within the single quotes. So in our case, if you just want to see Hadoop connectivity option, make sure spelling names are correct, you can run this command. So when we run this command, we will just get the Hadoop connectivity option. So remember the syntax for this command. If you just want to see one particular property, you use spconfigure and you use the config name parameter, and you equate it with the value you want to see displayed in the result grid. Alright, so guys, we are done with the second demo. Just to how you can list out the specific property, how to list the configuration setting for one configuration name. We are done with this. We are done with the first demo. Now let's cover the third demo. It's how you can list the advanced configuration options using the spconfigure stored procedure in transact SQL. So by default, when you run the spconfigure procedure, it does not show you the advanced options. So in order to see the advanced option, you need to turn on the show advanced option setting. Alright, so how you can change that setting is, let me show you. So you need to again run the same procedure spconfigure, and you need to specify this particular setting, show advanced options, and this setting should be set to 1 in order to turn it on. So this is basically the syntax. You use spconfigure and you use the keyword show advanced options, and you set the value to 1. So let me execute this statement. So now advanced option is changed from 0 to 1. It is saying configuration option show advanced option is changed from 0 to 1. and we need to run the reconfigure statement to install or this value to take effect. Now immediately after that you should run the reconfigure option in order for advanced option setting which we have set to take place. So let's run reconfigure. So reconfigure is done. Now we run the execute stored procedure, or if we just run the test configure stored procedure, instead of 29 setting that we were getting earlier, we should be getting more. So we run the stored procedure, we are now getting 95 settings, and these settings are including any advanced settings in the list, and the basic settings and the advanced settings as well. So all settings are now showing up. Now similarly, let's turn it off quickly. So let me turn it off. So I don't want to see the advanced option. So what I will do, I will set it back to 0. Run this command, reconfigure it to take effect. And now if I run the sp-configure stored procedure, I will see only the basic 29 option and not the advanced option. So I'm just saying 29 options. Earlier, when we see the advanced option, we get the list of 95 items over here. So guys, we are done with this demo, which is the third demo. We're done. Now let's move on to fourth demo, which is how you can change the configuration options using the sp-configure stored procedure in transact SQL. Now let's try to modify one of the settings which are basic settings. Let me show you that. So in our case, let's modify the recovery interval if it is showing up over here. So let's see if we have recovery interval setting over here. So if I type recovery interval, let's see if that option is available over here. So I'm running this command, sp-configure config name equal to recovery interval. So guys, this is an advanced option, so we need to turn off. It is giving us an error that this is an recovery interval is an advanced option, so we need to turn on the advanced option. So let's first turn on the advanced options. So for that we need to run the same command again, sp-configure show advanced option to 1. We can set and reconfigure it. Alright, now we can see this setting. So this setting is minimum is 0, max is 32767, config value and run values are currently 0. Now let's start this setting. Let's configure this setting, which is, and this is an advanced setting. The recovery interval is an advanced setting. So make sure we are in the advanced settings mode if we want to configure this setting. So in order to configure, what you will do, you will write the sp-configure stored procedure and you will specify the name of the option, which is recovery interval, and you will set the value. Let's set the value to 3. Alright, so let's run this option. Now we have just set the option which is set under config. Now let's try, but we have not run the reconfigure command after setting the option. So let's try to run configure and let's see whether it allows you to set that option using just reconfigure. So it allowed you to. Alright, now if we check the setting, the config value is 3 and the run value is 3. You can also use reconfigure with override option, but yeah, if reconfigure does your work, then there's no need to run the reconfigure with override option, and we should always use reconfigure with override option with care, as mentioned in my previous warning. So take care before running this reconfigure with override. You should be running this option very cautiously. Now guys, we are done with 4 demos. We have covered these 4 demos. So let's discuss, let's touch little bit upon the performance tuning. But before that, let me make some general talk regarding the performance tuning. And alright, let's do a general talk on the previous section we have covered. So before we start performance tuning, let me make a general talk on this general talk on the previous section. So give me a minute. Okay guys, let me discuss some of the pending items. So it's a general talk. So basically we must ensure that our servers are not overwhelmed while managing our data, and servers should not be overwhelmed. while managing our data, right? Data, or that point is very important if we want to gain performance benefits. And basically, while the query tuning is an important aspect to performance tuning in general, so query tuning is basically a part of performance tuning, right? And performance tuning includes other areas as well. So while query tuning is an important aspect of performance tuning in general, you first need to understand how your servers are working. All right, that is the first aspect of performance tuning. You should know how your servers are working. And whether we are talking about traditional install of a SQL Server, a virtual machine install, or a Docker install, you'll want to learn how to capture performance metrics on any of these environments. So you should know how to capture performance metrics on the any of the environments where SQL Server is installed, including VMs and Docker containers as well. Alright, so basically the gist is that you should know how to capture the performance metrics in these environments. And SQL Server can be installed in variety of environments, including they can be installed on VM as well, and they can be installed on Docker container as well. So regarding the installation, you can check out some other online videos available on YouTube. So far I haven't made any videos on the installations on this Docker containers and the installation of VMs, but yeah, you can check that out if you find any. Later on I will try to make videos on installing videos particularly related to installation area, but so far we are considering focusing our attention on the performance tuning area, so I'm not covering installation over here. But yeah, I'm talking in regards to performance tuning, that you should be aware how you can capture the performance metrics on these environments, all these environments. And you also need a plan for capturing vendor specific metrics. Let's, for an example, if I talk about, there are two virtual environments, like we can use VMware virtual machines, or we can use Hyper-V virtual machines or hypervisors. That basically lets you virtualize your SQL Server instances, and the underlying metrics defining behavior for each are very different. So the behavior of these two environments, the VMware environment and Hyper-V environment, is quite different. And the same thing goes for the VMs in any of the clouds like AWS cloud or Azure cloud. Our focus must be on collecting the metrics on weights and queues. So basically, what our focus should be, our focus should be on collecting metrics on weights and queues. We will talk about these in much detail later. I'm discussing it here very briefly. And we should collect metrics around disk IO as well, disk IO metrics. We should take metrics on memory as well, the CPU, and because these are some of the most important resources that are likely to be stressed as your data loads grow. Alright, so we should collect metrics regarding these resources. Now, in addition to managing your hardware and virtual machines, you will need to worry about your network as well. So we should take into consideration network as well if we are talking about the performance tuning area. Now, it's not just about your internet download or upload speeds. It is also about the health of the routers you are using, the cables you are using, your Wi-Fi repeaters, etc. that you may use in your organization. You should be looking at network as one of the performance tuning parameters as well. aspect, I will say. So you should take a look at network, that your network is smooth, your routers, Wi-Fi repeaters and cables are intact and are running smoothly. That can also affect your SQL queries performance. If you are triggering any remote queries that are running providing results over the network, then your network can play a big role in that. And if your network is bad, you will get a poor performance. Now another aspect could be a software aspect, which is another performance tuning aspect, I would say, that you should consider. So sometimes software can also be a problem, especially when you're using any custom built applications that are not optimized in how they deal with the database. And you could experience almost any issue from incorrect drivers causing connection timeouts. So if your applications are using incorrect drivers that are causing your connection timeouts to code, and does your code is not properly committing the transactions due to that connection timeouts, and basically that leaves the transaction open, which basically holds up resources on your SQL Server, and that basically negatively impacts performance all over the place. So you should consider software as well while doing performance tuning, that your software is using proper drivers, and there should be no connection timeouts, and all the transactions are being committed properly. You need to ensure that. And also it is not uncommon for databases to simply be built poorly. So another aspect I would say is databases are built poorly. That can be another aspect that can that's another performance tuning aspect that can affect the performance of the query execution basically. So if our databases are built poorly for the needs of the data and the application, improper or incomplete data normalization can cause poor performance. So if our databases have improper normalization or incomplete data normalization, that can result in poor performance as well. In addition to that, there are certain category of tools like ORM tools that basically, and these tools basically that build databases. These tools basically build databases, if you have worked with such tools. But yeah, you can check out online what are ORM tools. These tools basically can build databases that look like objects, which perform quite poorly, even as they make development easier. Basically, you should take a time to evaluate all your data structures, the structure of the tables, to ensure you are designing the databases well, and the data types of all the columns are correct, and your structure support the workload you are placing on them. So you need to take care of that factor as well. Now, if we talk about SQL Server, it's a wonderful tool, but it's not applicable to every situation, right? You may find that you are collecting data through massive Internet of Things system, maybe, or IoT systems. If you're collecting such data that where the structured or semi-structured information is being collected, so not structured but the unstructured or semi-structured information is collected. So basically, if we talk about SQL Server, it works on a structured information, like it works on a normalized data or a structured information. Sometimes we deal with the environments where we don't get the structured data, or we get the semi-structured data, because this information can be collected in a faster manner. Unstructured data and semi-structured information can be collected in a faster manner, then SQL Server can process it. So in these kind of environments, we cannot use SQL Server. Basically, we should be using other systems. So sometimes the right choice isn't to attempt to tune a query basically, or database or a server. Sometimes it is required to change to a more appropriate data storage mechanism. So basically, first of all, we need to understand the business and technical needs of the data we are attempting to build a system to manage. Sometimes we may be better served with an ID value database, or maybe some other type of non-relational database store. So SQL is a relational database, and there are other type of databases as well, like no SQL databases are there. So sometimes the data you are collecting better suits to those type of databases not involving SQL here, and those can be better served by NoSQL databases. So we need to first determine that whether SQL is appropriate, SQL Server is an appropriate choice for the data you are trying to handle. If it's not, yeah, definitely you should not be using SQL Server, but yeah, you should be moving to other database. So this is one of the other performance tuning aspect, like the, and this aspect is type of data that we are collecting, like the unstructured or semi-structured data. Structured data that can be better served by NoSQL databases maybe. So this is one of the performance tuning aspect as well. So we should take that aspect into consideration. Alright, now let's go to the next section in the notebook. So let's cover the performance tuning over here. Now performance tuning is basically a repetitive process. This process can be defined as below. So we are talking about the process here. So it's a repetitive process, we should keep in mind. Performance tuning is a repetitive process. So first of all, in performance tuning, we basically identify the problem, we then fix the problem, we then validate the fix, then we measure the impact of the fix and current performance after the fix is implemented. So once the performance is appropriate, we wait for the next problem to occur or surface, so that after that this cycle runs again. The problem is identified, we fix the problem. So this keeps on, this is a cycle that keeps on going. So this is a repetitive process basically. I've listed out the step of the process, but these steps are repetitive for each problem that will surface. Now let's talk about the most common root causes of poor performance. So we are talking about the most common root causes of poor performance, and below are the most common causes of poor performance. I have listed them in the order where the most common causes are at the top. So one of the most common causes of the performance problem is the T-SQL code. This comes at top. Second is the poor indexing strategy. First is T-SQL code, second is the poor indexing strategy. That accounts for most of the cases where we see the performance issues. So these two are quite common. Apart from that, we see that database table structure and schema design and out of date missing statistics. These are also common issues. And IO subsystem problem and application code are also some of the most common issues. And yeah, the database table structure and schema design is also the issue. Out of date missing statistics is all of the issue. So if we consider these six statistics or six aspects, this accounts for almost like 67% of cases. The other aspects we encounter rarely, like SQL Server database configuration, virtualization. We get less number of cases on these issues that are impacting the performance of our SQL Server system, like other hardware and OS issue or CPU power saving issues. So the most common of them is T-SQL code and poor indexing strategy. Alright, and 67% of cases will cover in under these six areas. Alright, let me share some of the more small talk over here. Let me rub that. Now let me discuss some of the performance tuning talk over here. Alright, so one of the best habits that you can develop is to change only one thing at a time. So in case you have found the query where there is an issue with the code which is causing the performance issues, so basically you should have a habit where you make changes to just one query or one piece of code, and any change to structure or code can have impact. Because why we are saying so, because if you are making a change to a code, that can have impact beyond the immediate code you are working with currently. And if we can limit our changes to one changes at a time, your ability to measure and understand the impact of those changes is enhanced. So the first point is we should change one thing at a time and measure its impact instead of making more than one changes, right? So I have just described the reason, because you are not sure whatever query you are modifying, what will the impact of that change will be. So yeah, it's better to modify just a single query than monitor its performance. For example, let me take an example for this situation. So for example, you may decide that adding an index will radically improve the performance of a query, right? But this can also cause other queries to run slower, although you are currently seeing that if I add an index to a particular table in a used in a query, and that will improve the query performance. But yeah, adding that index can cause other queries to run slower. The slowdown of other queries could be because they are now using that index, and it's not just as good for them, right? Or because they are data modification queries, and now another index must be modified as data gets added, changed, or removed from the system, right? So I've just given an example. So example is that uh, we have decided on adding an index that will radically improve the performance of a query. But yeah, that index can also result in other queries to run slower, because other queries can be the data modification queries, and now they have an additional burden of updating that particular index, and as the data gets modified, changed, or removed from the system. Alright, so this is the example, that's why we are saying that make one change at a time. Now second situation where we encounter the performance problem is that if the number of people using your system grows, number of people using your system grows, that could also result in some performance problem. So as the number of people using your system grows, you may see new needs for performance tuning. So performance tuning is required at that time if number of people grow in your organization that are using the SQL Server. So when the data stored within the database expands, additional query degradation can occur. So as soon as tables get filled with the data, or data keeps on your database is expanding continuously, it will impact the queries, and queries may give slow performance with these heavy tables. And as the data simply changes over time, you can see similar changes to the behavior of the queries. All of this will lead you to do additional query performance tuning. So if the number of people using your system grows, or if data grows within your database, it will impact the query performance definitely. Now let's talk about a query performance. So what will you talk about a query? A query that runs in, let's take a query that runs in 10 milliseconds. How you can say that it's a great query, right? We cannot say that it's a great query. So if this query gets called only a single time, then it's a great query, right? And if we optimize this query to run it within 8 milliseconds maybe, okay. So what if we what if we have a query that runs in 10 milliseconds? So if this query gets called only a single time, then it's good. But what if this query gets called thousands of times? What if this query gets called thousands of times? So in that situation, we should try to improve the performance of this query times. So if we come across that situation, in that situation, we should try to optimize the query even if we gain the performance benefit of few milliseconds. So if we just talk a query that runs within 10 milliseconds is quite good. But yeah, what if this query is being called thousands of times? That will take a huge amount of time, right? So if we optimize such queries and if we get any performance benefits like it runs 2 milliseconds lesser than the previous version, then yeah, if it is called thousands of times, we can gain substantial performance gains, right? Now if we talk about another query, a query that runs in about 30 milliseconds maybe. So what can we say regarding this query? It's a great query or not? So if this query gets called single time, then it's great. Then it's great, right? So we should not just comment about the query by just taking a look at the number of seconds it takes to execute in a single run. Basically, we should also consider the fact whether that query is being called multiple times or not. So that is what I'm trying to convey, right? So if we have a 30 millisecond query, if we are just executing it single time, then it's very great, right? But if we even have a 10 milliseconds query that is being called thousands of times, that is not great. We should try to optimize that query further to reap some performance gains by reducing the milliseconds in that query. So we should optimize that query. So it depends upon the number of time the query gets called. So that is one of the factors as well. So the factor is the number of time. Factor here is the number of time a query gets called. A query gets called instead of query single execution time, right? So maybe there is no need to optimize a 30 millisecond query that is running only one time. There is no need to optimize that query. But yeah, if we have a query that is running in 10 milliseconds and there are 1000 invocations of that query, then definitely there is a need to optimize that query so that we can reap performance gains or time benefits, right? So I've discussed this scenario, and let's see what is apart from that. So let's talk about, basically we set some performance monitoring mechanism or query monitoring mechanisms in the system. Query monitoring mechanisms, and we basically implement these mechanisms to monitor for queries that are taking longer to execute. So after you set up the mechanisms for query monitoring, you need to have some time to consume the data collected, right? So these mechanism collects the data. These collects data or query performance data. Alright, and we should have time to consume this data collected. Then after you identify the query you intend to tune, so after analyzing this performance data, we will be able to determine which query is causing performance issues, right? So after we determine which query is performing the performance issue and which query we should be tuning, and we are going to spend a lot of time quite a bit of time reading through that particularly. So we read that query. We spend time in reading that query, reading this query because we have to tune this query, right? And basically we read the query in order to understand what it's doing, how and why. Then further time will be spent looking at the execution plan for the query. We take a look at execution plan of the query, execution plan of a query, right? To understand if there are any tuning opportunities. So to understand if we have any tuning opportunities. So we basically analyze the query plans to determine if there are any tuning opportunities. And finally, we are going to have a time spent testing the solutions before we implement them in our production environment or production server. So once we fix the query for any performance issues, we test that query in the lab environment or test environments instead of directly implementing the change in the production environment. So keep that in mind. Now let me discuss regarding the top performance problems. So earlier we were discussing that top performance problems are due to the T-SQL code and the poor indexing strategy. So these are the two top most common problems. Further, we can see that the design of the data structure, which is this fifth option, and the out of date statistics, which is the sixth option. So these are and these two options are in the top six problems, right? This means that fully 64% of all the performance problems are directly related to the directly related to these six six areas. Basically, the 64% of problems comes from these six areas, and we should be looking into this area. Other problems come from other areas, which can be hardware, virtualization, or CPU stuff. Now you can spend your way out of performance problems buying bigger, faster, and more hardware, or using higher service tier. You will still be dealing. So maybe you can buy a good hardware which can run faster, or maybe you can buy a bigger, faster hardware. But yeah, 64% of your problems are not coming from that hardware perspective, right? They are coming from the code level perspective or design level perspective, right? So even if we buy the good hardware, that's we should still take a look at this area, right? So 64% of our problems lie in our code, indexes, and statistics. So in short, you can buy some wonderful hardware imaginable, but you still get bad performance if your code isn't good enough, right? Or if your data structures are not good enough, right? So you should be focusing on these six areas. Alright, because just purchasing a good hardware doesn't guarantee the good performance for your query. So guys, I'm done with my small talk as well. In this video we have discussed about the query performance tuning process. Then we have taken you through some of the performance issues. Then we have discussed about the SP configured stored procedure, and we have discussed we have gone through the reconfigure and reconfigure with override options, and we have covered 4 demos related to SP configure, how you can configure the global configuration options of a server, right? Database level configuration options can be set using the alter table commands, but we have not discussed that. We so far in these demos we have discussed how you can change the global configurations using the SP configure stored procedure. Apart from that, we have talked about performance tuning, what is done in performance tuning, and we have talked that it's a repetitive process, and discussed a set of steps that gets repeated every time. And we also talked about the most common root causes of the performance problem, where we discussed that T-SQL code and the poor indexing strategy is a cause of most of the performance problems. Apart from that, your database design structure and missing statistics or out of date statistics is also a common problem. So we should be looking at the code. We have also discussed even if you buy a great hardware, but if there is a problem in your code, you will get a poor performance through your queries. So majority of your effort, or 64% at least of your effort, should be towards the code and the database structure and indexing, etc., and the statistics. Rest of the effort should be towards the hardware. Alright, so guys, I hope you like this video. We are done with this video. If you really like it, please click on the like button below this video, and please, if you are new to this channel, please click on the subscribe button below this video, and it will give a bell icon. Click on that bell icon and then select all notifications to get notifications regarding all my future videos. Guys, please do share your comments regarding this video, how you liked it, what part of it you liked, and also let us know if you want us to make more videos regarding performance videos, performance tuning area, or any other areas of SQL Server. Do post us your comments, suggestions, the content you liked, the content you disliked, or any of your day-to-day experiences with SQL Server, any of my videos that benefited you in your daily life. Do let us know about your stories. We eagerly wait to hear from you. So do post us your comments, and guys, if you have a good network of friends, please share my videos with them if they are working in SQL domain, and ask them to join our channel as well, in case you feel my channel will make difference in their lives. So please share my channel with them and help me in circulating my channel. I really need to help people that are working in SQL Server domain, so help me with that. I thank you so much for your time on this video today, and you have a wonderful day ahead, guys. Thank you.